is the battle of the big guns as defending champs Sydney FC host league leaders Melbourne City. The Phoenix title contenders will break down their distance derby win over the Glory in what was a cracking contest yesterday. And one for the road, the Wanderers finally end one of the Liberty A-League's longest droughts. Hello and welcome to Dub Zone. I'm Niav Owens. It is awesome to have you with us after what has been an awesome weekend of football. A whole heap of goals, bit of a storm thrown in as well. We were worried that A-League's commentator Teo Pellizzeri wouldn't make the studio, but you are here, Teo, never in doubt.
Wouldn't miss it for the world, and especially after a full slate of all 6 games, so many directions to go.
So much to talk about, former Matilda Alicia Ferguson. Good to see you, Ish.
I know, I made it back.
You're here.
I survived the debut.
Well done. Yeah, second call-up, but a debut this week for Pokuah Frimpong, A-League's commentator. Hello.
Hello, I'm trying to survive my debut, so we'll see how we go.
Welcome, and we hope to see you next week as well. Let's start with that top-of-the-table clash, because Sydney FC, Melbourne City, Ish, and it felt in the first half in particular like this was a real statement from the City side. They did not allow Sydney a look in.
No, they had all the possession, 3 great goals, and I think the sign of a great team and a winning team that is going to be vying for championships is the fact that they don't rely on just one goal scorer. You know, really comprehensive performance from City in this first half. Sydney didn't look like they started well. They were quite slow to it, but, you know, City didn't allow them to actually have any time. They were attacking so much. Some great finishes as well, you know, seeing Grosso with that little left foot. Ekic from the corner, and then Galich had her second goal in 2 games.
Part of that attacking change, Pokuah, was the fact that they had Hannah Wilkinson, Kiwi international, on the bench today, and they reshuffled things.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it is addition by subtraction, and I think with Hannah Wilkinson on the bench, it allowed Melbourne City's attack to be a little bit more free-flowing and allowed everybody to get involved and take a little bit of the pressure off everybody else.
It took Sydney FC a whole heap of time to get any kind of purchase on this contest. They eventually got one back, Teo, and that felt in that moment like maybe the momentum started to swing.
Certainly, and in the 15 years history of this league plus this season, a team has only ever got something out of a 3-0 deficit on 2 occasions, ever. So the idea of coming back from a 3-goal deficit, they believed. And the weather intervened after it was 3-1. I think the very next phase of play, the players were off for the lightning break. But after the lightning break, they came back, they didn't lose the momentum, and they played with real belief that given the absentees who weren't playing today, would give them a lot of confidence for when they next play City in February.
We saw the storm break happen. We knew they were off for 30 minutes. And in this moment, Ish, I felt like it was really tough on the home side. They'd built into the game. We'd started to see them actually carry possession for a period of time. And the weather gods intervened.
Yeah, I mean, it's control the controllables, right, though? You can't control that, but it's about maintaining that mental focus, coming back on it. Actually, they were the better team, weren't they? Potentially City thinking that they had the ascendancy, that they had the goals, but Sydney were the better team in that last 15 minutes, Teo.
We see this, though. The 4-3 loss to Perth at the end of last year, the 3-3 draw in the elimination final, the 3-3 draw with Canberra, and then you were commentating the 4-3 win against Wanderers, Pokuah. This City team, they exert great control until they don't, and then all hell breaks loose.
Absolutely. The moment the game turns into a transition game, they just seem to crumble a little bit. And I think a stat that's indicative of it is that 9 out of the top 20 players with passes in opposition half are Melbourne City players. They spend so much time out there, but they leave so much space behind them. So once the ball's there, it gives opposition teams time and free opportunities to score.
One person who took that opportunity today was Jordan Thompson. She's the new signing for Sydney FC, each an injury contract until the end of the season, an American defender. I mean, a goal on debut. She came on for the second half. That's not a bad start, but Nat Tobin's very big shoes to fill.
Yeah, huge. I mean, you can see that the experience, the organisation that Nat Tobin brought to that back line maybe is what Sydney are missing, and hopefully Jordan can bring that. But, you know, it's great that then you bring a defender who can actually score goals as well, and some finish it was. Nice little dink, like just first time up and over the keeper into the far post. And a great start, and that would give Sydney some confidence going into their next game.
It is Melbourne City, though, who take 3 points out of this one, and Julia Grosso, who scored a goal for City, always the vibe manager out there on the park, was good enough to send this message after the game.
It's always a challenge being in away games, not having our home fans, but I think we rose to the occasion, and it's awesome to be the only undefeated team now. And I think the hardest part about getting to the top is staying on top, so now it's just a new challenge for us, but I think we showed today that we're ready for that challenge. I was just on my toes, ready for when the ball came to me, and tried to stay composed. And honestly, I don't know if I can talk through my celebration because I don't even know. I was just like, and I just wanted to be with my teammates because it comes from all of us. So, yeah, I don't really know what I did.
What a legend. Love hearing her speak, love watching her play her football, and it feels like Pokuah this year, she's playing with real confidence.
Absolutely. I think last season we saw her drive forward at a lot of times, but maybe she was missing that final pass. I think this season she's played with a lot of confidence and she's getting that pass, getting her teammates in and now getting on the sheet herself.
So, City with 3 points today, Melbourne victory with 3 points as well, Ish. And I think this game against the Central Coast Mariners was much like their season, really. They were slow to start, slow to work their way into it, but they made sure they actually took something out of it.
Yeah, and that's the difference between good teams and great teams and whether you're actually competing for that top spot as well. You know, it's all well and good creating lots of chances, but lacking that clinical finishing is always going to be a bit of a stitch-up. And today they were able to convert a couple of those chances, and great to see Aquino on the score sheet after her creating so many chances and absolutely not being able to finish them.
You've seen a whole heap of her, Aquino, in the NPLW Victoria. 31 goals, the Golden Boot. This is a player that we know can find the back of the net, and she did that today for the first time in the Liberty A-League.
Absolutely. I've got to be honest, I've never been more happier for a player to score, and she was so good in the NPL Victoria and she looked so confident. I think what's missing for her is just knowing the runs and when to make them for her teammates. But to score that one, I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off her, and I think we're going to see much better from her in the future.
Mariners should feel as though they had great chances to win this game and didn't take them, especially when the game was 0-0. Composure was lacking. Chances weren't falling to their strikers. For starters, players were overloading. We saw a defender, Faye Bryson, score, but also Izzy Gomez sort of getting forward, not a regular goal scorer. And those were fine margins, and the Mariners, they'll feel as though they should have come out of this game with something. And victory, you know, they're putting together a run of form. But again, I'm not sure they'd be totally convinced by the performance as opposed to the result.
No, certainly, Teo, and I think they should have done better at this Melbourne Victory team. There are a lot of experienced players there, but they just aren't on the same page just yet, and I don't know what it is that's missing for them. Maybe it is the likes of Alex Shidiak if they can get her back into this team, but they're missing something.
Chids gets mentioned nice and early on Dubs, and each and every week. We appreciate that very much. What about Casey Dumont? Another player that over the years we've spent plenty of time talking about, usually in a Melbourne Victory shirt. She spent 6 seasons with them. She joined the Mariners, and today Emily Husband gave her her first start.
Yeah, great to see Casey back. I mean, Casey was the young goalkeeper at the Raw back when I was still playing. And she has that experience. Probably maybe a little bit of inconsistency with a couple of the chances. I think that one, questioned, should she have come? Could she have let her defender deal with it? But it's also just as a backline, the confidence that you have when a goalkeeper behind you is good to play with their feet as well, so they can actually join in and start the attacking play. And I think she's, a great signing for the Mariners.
Let's have a look at an absolute cracker on Saturday night now. We saw Wellington take on Perth, the distance derby, and for the Knicks, Pokuah, they keep providing. There was a great crowd in for this game, and they absolutely showed that they're the real deal this season.
They have shown that they're the real deal, and I think this season they're actually getting to play football. Last season, the last times they've been in the competition, they've sat back and absorbed so much pressure and tried as best they can, but finally this year they've got a manager who's allowing them to play some football, and they've got some really young, exciting players.
The thing I like about this Phoenix team is that what they're always looking to do is to change the point of attack quickly. I know the term's been the small ball game, but what they're not doing is going into an area, finding that it's tight, and then coming out and then going back in. They're switching the ball out, which is where they got a lot of those opportunities against Perth in this game.
What was curious about this game is the halftime team talk didn't actually affect the momentum for either team. Wellington had 13 shots in the first half, 60% possession, went in 1-0 down, and I think Perth knew that they were a little bit fortunate to be in the lead in this game, but they didn't brace for the onslaught continuing at the start of the second half, nor did Wellington lose any of the momentum due to the halftime break. You don't see that. Normally coaches use that opportunity to alter things, make adjustments and change the momentum of a game. Instead, this one just continued on the same pattern and Wellington got their reward. Which
is great though, isn't it? Like, you've got two teams that want to keep attacking each other and going, rather than trying to sit in and consolidate and go into that defensive mode as well. And especially with Perth, they've travelled a long way. We can't take that away from this team going all the way into Wellington. These two teams, it's great to see them wanting to go and play attacking football and really opening the game up.
Part of that, from a Nick's perspective, has to be Elliot. She got her start in this game for Pokuah. I'm a big fan. She's a local product. She's, 18-ish now, and we're starting to see what she can do. She's a footballer.
No, she's certainly a player that I've really enjoyed watching, and I like that she drives at players and she's not afraid to take the game on, and we saw that in this game, create a lot of great opportunities, and had her teammates been able to finish those opportunities in the first half, she certainly would have got a couple more assists as well. But she's a phenomenal young talent, and I think that Knicks have found another one.
I love the way Speckmeyer is going about her football this season as well. She's well up for any challenge. She has got that real competitive kind of edge about her.
Yeah, woman after my own heart. You know, probably more skill and ability than I ever had. But she makes a difference to this team. I thought for this chance, look, she's an attacking player. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, but she had a teammate right in the middle for a tap in. Fair enough, but you know, she's a dangerous player, and she is always looking busy in the game.
I don't know how early Phoenix found out that Macy Fraser wasn't playing this game, but she is in the top 10 of almost all their attacking and passing and possession stats. We don't know if she's going to potentially miss out on a Football Ferns debut as a result of having missed out on yesterday's game too, which is unfortunate given the form she was in. But it just shows that the Phoenix squad depth, where previously it may have been tested giving players debuts, now they've got real confidence in who's there to step up in the absence of, really statistically, one of their best performers this season. Yeah,
but also, I mean, for this team, and they're a young team, and they're playing in an enjoyable style of football for a young team, and they're getting good results, and that gives you that momentum and that confidence to continue doing it. What I do also like about this team is they always look like they've got 2 or 3 options. So there's always, you know, they're compact. So they stay very close as a close unit. There's not big distances between any of the defensive midfield or attacking units.
One of the players who's a key part of that is Annalie Longo, and she was good enough to have a yarn with the Sky Sport team after the game.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous. I think that last 20 minutes was pretty scrappy all around the pitch, and we had to hang on. We dug deep, and couldn't be more excited to get the 3 points. We were fantastic in the first half. We are absolutely pinging the ball around in quality. We're just lacking that kind of clinical piece in the final third. And in the second half, we turned up and we scored 2 nice goals. And then to, I guess, battle and work hard and I guess push for that 3 points and kind of tip a team that are in some very good form. It's good days for the Phoenix. I think the depth of the squad is something that's going to, we're going to lean on. You saw Zoe McMeekin come in today. That hasn't been in the squad yet, and she did a fantastic job. So I think it's a good thing. We're pushing, people are pushing for starting spots, and I think everyone that's turned up and played has done an outstanding job. So full quality, it's a full team effort, and just proud of the girls today.
Tell you who else turned up, the fans. The vibe and the atmosphere, the noise around that game was really great as well. It was the visitors actually who scored first. We should give them a mention. It was Alex Apakis' 50th game in charge of the Perth Glory women's side. They scored first in this one, and it was Millie Farrow, her first A-Leagues goal. She missed one last week, and she'd be stoked to have banged this one home.
Certainly, and something about Millie Farrow that Alex Apakis has been impressed with is, besides scoring goals, she's been getting involved, but finally the goals is falling in for her. But she's a real workhorse and somebody who's really important, and if she can keep that form up, Perth Glory will have nothing to worry about for the rest of the season.
Away to Melbourne City after the international break, the ultimate test. We spoke 2 weeks ago about how they were playing last season's top 4 plus Wellington in a 5-week stretch. Well, here we are. Now we get to find out just how legitimate their title contention really is.
You mentioned the international break there, so let's talk about the Tillies. They're in action against Canada, 2 friendlies, both games sold out in a matter of minutes in Canada, and we'll have both games, of course, for you on 10 Play and on Paramount Plus. Part of the reason, Ish, that they sold out in a matter of minutes is because the Tillies are wonderful. The other reason is because Christine Sinclair will play her last games for Canada. She is one of those players who is worshipped worldwide in terms of the goals she's scored, the number of World Cups she's featured and scored at, but also inside Canada, she is an absolute goat.
Yeah, she's a national hero, but also she is one of the greatest footballers of all time. Not differentiating between male or female. She's played over 300 internationals for Canada, scored over nearly 200 goals. She's 40 years old, right? I'm 42. It takes me 3 days to recover from a 5-a-side that's like an hour. Like, her longevity within the game, but just comes down to her leadership as well. The way she is just such a humble individual. She just goes about her business, but also is just incredibly generous with her experience and generous with bringing the next generation through. And it'll be a shame to see her leave, but we've had so many good years of watching Sinky, so it'll be great to see her in the last game against the Matildas as well.
You played against her too. How'd that work out for you?
Couldn't get near her. Look, she's an incredible player. You can't deny, Sinky's a very direct player. similar to a Sam Kerr, lots of goals in behind, lots of headers, physically she gets stuck in, she puts herself around. She is difficult to defend. And it's difficult to score that many goals no matter how many games you play. But she has just been consistent throughout her career, banging in goals.
From an Aussie perspective, what do you want to see out of these couple of games?
No more suspense. I think we all saw the story this week that Tony Gustafsson has been attached to the Sweden men's job. Credit to him. It's a good gig, especially to manage your national team of your home nation, men or women. But we need an answer. Are you staying until the end of the Paris Olympics? Are you going to serve out your contract, then go? Maybe announce that. If you want to go and maybe use your current position as leverage to try and find a job in international or club football somewhere else, I don't know, maybe leave. Go be a free agent. Do it on the open market. Stop using the Matildas to kind of use this position to find a gig somewhere else. Let's just get an answer and move on so that we don't have every media sort of, opportunist coming in and saying, hey, let's attach Tony Gustafsson to this job or to this job. It's our national job. It needs to be held in the gravitas it deserves.
I was going to say, don't all coaches do that? try and shop themselves around?
Sure they do.
And basically negotiate and stuff?
But after hosting this World Cup, we should hold ourselves as a nation in the esteem that we're not going to let coaches do this to our prize national job right up there, equal, if not a greater gig than the Socceroos job.
Yeah, look, I don't think even the players don't think about it as deeply as that. I don't think they're as precious as that. I think, he's done a great job performance-wise. I think it'd be, I don't see a huge issue with continuing through. Paris is the focus of this 4-year cycle. It's the end focus. So any of the other discussion around it, I don't think matters too much.
What about an extension then? If the players are fine with him, why not give him an extension to the end of the World Cup? And then there's no reason to actually think about what is my next gig on the open market.
Football Australia did comment on that this week. They said that contract negotiations will happen at an appropriate time in the future, and they also said that they don't talk about speculative reports about any of their coaches while they're happening. So we will continue to follow that story. And you know what? We'll probably continue to talk about it right up to and during the Paris Olympic Games as well. What about for you, Pokuah? What do you want to see out of these two games?
I think much like Teo wants some certainty in Tony Gustafsson's job, I want to know a little bit more about the Matildas' playing style. I want to see us have a consistent system that we can go to every time that we have something going on, because I think too much of the time we have a long balls getting played into Sam Kerr and not using our players to their advantage. So I just want a little more certainty in us playing through the lines.
What do I want to see? Look, you continue on with, good performances and scoring goals and winning. We came off the back of the Asian the Asian qualifiers, the World Cup qualifiers, and, it's just, I think we've got a pretty set style of play. I'm going to disagree with you there, and I think, the players are comfortable with it. We've got a system that works well for us, and I think we can, the number one thing that we need to do is qualify for Paris.
The only thing I would have to say about that is that it's not a style that's repeatable at times. We play those long balls to Sam Kerr and she's got to find someone to play it to, but we don't allow our players to shine. So I just want us playing through the lines a little bit more and a little more consistency there.
One spot potentially open. Everyone's got to get through their club commitments coming up overnight, and then maybe a decision will be made on who comes in for the very unfortunate Holly McNamara, who is obviously out of the squad with her torn anterior cruciate ligament. I'm kind of indifferent. Do we even call up an extra player? I mean, a lot of the chat after the Olympic qualifiers was a smaller squad goes to the Olympics. Do we think there's a nailed-on, easy candidate to come in as the replacement, or do we even roll one down?
Can do both. I think exactly it's not a huge issue. They're two friendlies against a really good opposition. Let's just play some good football.
Another Matildas squad in action this week are the young Matildas. They're heading off to China to play a couple of warm-up matches. This is an incredible opportunity, Ish, ahead of the Under-20s Asian Cup in March next year. Great opportunity for the players to have that experience and for us to see some of the young Liberty A-League stars in action as well. As we have a look at that young Matildas squad, who's really standing out for you?
I really like Avani Prakash. I saw, she's only played limited minutes in the A-League Women's, but type of player, that number 10, she looks like she kind of floats around the field. Nice balance and fluidity. So I want to see a lot more of her.
Ella O'Grady has stepped into Melbourne victory and has started scoring goals straight away. This is a player that the young Matildas trusted and were calling up before she ever played in the Liberty A-League. They knew something. Melbourne victory followed suit. Hopefully that continues to translate to international football, where she has been prolific against some of the smaller nations in the earlier qualifiers.
Alana Murphy as well, Pokuah. She's scored a couple of bangers for the young Matildas already. They know that she is up to this.
No, Alana Murphy, just a skilled player and wants to go forward and really great creative outlet. I want to see her shine in these games, and she's been doing good for Melbourne victory so far this season. I want to see her take that step on international level as well.
Let's take it back to the Liberty A-League now and talk about the Western Sydney Wanderers. First win on the road, breaking a 20-match winless run away from home. This was a big game to celebrate, Ish, from a Wanderers perspective. And it was Sophie Harding, who is so lightning quick. Part of the game plan was to start to really try and use her pace, and it paid off.
Yeah, look, I know Tom Samani really well. I know Robert Hooker very well. They were both the coaches when I was with the Matildas, so I understand what their approach, which is basically just forming good habits, protecting the ball and utilising what you've got on the pitch rather than conforming to a specific formation and particular style of play. I mean, Sophie Harding, I think Tom Samani said to me, she could catch pigeons. That's how quick she is. So using her pace. So if they have an opportunity to get the ball in behind and turn the opposition around, they need to be more positive and looking for those opportunities rather than getting stuck into a set style of play, whether it might be building up for the back.
She only scores when you call games. She is going to be insisting that you are put on each and every one of the Wanderers games moving forward.
It is something that seems to be happening. But she created that goal, the first goal, by herself, and that's what you want to see from Sophie Harding. Sometimes it doesn't really work out for her, but when she's on her front foot and trying to put the goalkeeper under pressure, that's where she's at the best.
Kush LaRue on the score sheet as well in this one, Teo.
Long overdue, because she had some great chances to score over the last 2 seasons, but what stood out to me with this isn't just the pace of Harding. It's Kush LaRue, who's a speedster. It's Holly Caspers. Would you believe that even though they're teammates at club level at Sydney Uni, before yesterday's game, Caspers and Rue had only ever been on the pitch at the same time for 31 minutes over the last 2 seasons. It was actually the opposite of what Western United had done with all that cohesion at Calder and the continuity of players knowing each other. And on the case of Rue, I think there's evidence of that goal yesterday of how these players are developing and improving under Robbie Hooker, under this new regime, which was instituted late in pre-season. The top shot there is against Melbourne City a couple of weeks ago. The bottom is the goal against Western United. Almost identical. These are players who know how to break into open space. If you were trying to pick a 4x100 relay team, Western Sydney Wanderers would win because you'd lead off with Caspers, you'd have Harding down the back straight, Kush LaRue would run the curve, and then they could hand the baton to whoever they want. They'd be so far out in front. This team is finally playing to its strengths, and instead of trying to shoehorn them into 4-3-3 and curriculum football, they are actually hitting open space, and they're going to pick up results like this as they go. They did have some good results against top 4 teams last year, and maybe the doom and gloom has finally lifted now that they've got a win under their belt to build a bit of momentum.
Played 3 at the back in this one, and that was for Hooks part of a change-up of the system, looking to create something new.
Absolutely. Just looking to make players more adaptable. So not being so set in a set system and getting to, because then you improve your decision making and with a bit more fluidity and that all is really easy when you win as well. So they've got that little bit of confidence and now they just need to continue building on that and continue building on that momentum.
Hannah Keane had a really good chance for Western in the first half. She didn't bury it, and it was the kind of opportunity that we saw her bury time and time again last season. What do you think Western have to change to help her, I guess, re-find the form that we enjoyed so much last year?
I think, unfortunately for Hannah Keane, the criticism of her circumstances, she's been forced out wide at times, and because she's getting out wide, she's not getting those opportunities and not falling for it, and when they do come for her, she's not prepared for them as much. And so she needs a partner in Carly Johnson, who had to go off early in this game. That's the kind of person that will unlock her play and get her a little bit more confidence in front of goal.
Western had 60% possession in the second half for 1 shot on target. Carly Johnson, thankfully, only went off sick. She'll still fly to China with that young Matildas team, which is good, so she hasn't been knocked out of that tour. But they missed her creativity so much.
They are, Teo, and I think they're also missing playing Kiwa Hieda. I think they need to play Carly Johnson and Hieda together with Keane, so there's a little bit more movement around her and finding those passes in behind to get Hannah Keane on the score sheet.
Let's head to the nation's capital for our next game, Ish, because this was a cracker, and I'm not just saying that from a Novocastrian's perspective, I swear. Canberra used Emily Van Egmond as part of their promotion in the lead-up for this game, and we saw exactly why. She scored, she had an assist, and her and Serena Bolden give this Jets a whole new outlook on life.
Yeah, absolutely. There was, balls in. This game had everything, didn't it? I thought it was going to be a 4-4 classic in the end. But again, I think Serena Bolden's come in. She's made a statement very early on, but it is easy when you've got someone pulling the strings in midfield or in that further attacking midfield position that Emily's playing in, you know, you get that creativity. You know, you can understand that Emily's always going to look for those balls through. And I think it was a cracking game. Michelle Heyman's goal, I think, was quintessential Michelle Heyman. If I could put my money on anyone scoring a 1v1, it would be Michelle Heyman. But yeah, what a game.
Vesna Milivojevic is making the 100 in a losing team every week because she continues to ball out and score amazing goals. But Canberra, pre-season, I almost facetiously picked them to have the top scoring attack and the highest conceding defence. They're going to blow this away at this point. It's actually looking like it's inevitable. Is there a way they can end the chaos, or should we just enjoy that we have a team that any neutral can enjoy regardless of what the result is?
I think it's just about enjoying the show, Terry, because they showed that getting into this season, they didn't get the defensive players they needed. But they've got a beautiful attacker, Vesna Milivojevic. You've got her in your fantasy team. You're dreaming. You've got her captain every week.
56 points as captain this week.
I know you won with her as captain, but no, she's fantastic. And defensively, they've just got something to fix, and maybe they can get somebody who is a free agent, but they need somebody.
From a Newcastle perspective, Serena Bolden, terrific in this game. We saw when she played for the Wanderers, when she joined them last season, a real spark and a real energy. And then it felt like after a couple of games, defences worked her out. How does Newcastle make sure, and with the return of Melina Ayres, that they continue to score goals?
Well, it's about service, isn't it? And it's about making sure that she improves and make sure she is clinical in front of goal. But that, when it takes a bit of pressure, when you get someone like Melina Ayres coming back into the team, they're two different players, so working out how to play with them together will take the pressure off both attacking players. I mean, Melina Ayres, you know, can score goals for fun as well, which is good because they offer something different to Newcastle, which means you can change the point of attack or change your approach during the game if something's not working.
Van Egmont's presence will be missed, no doubt about it, but hopefully the likes of Gooch and Hoban, these attacking midfielders who can provide support, will be able to feed that forward line. None of them are going to do it the way Van Egmont does. We know that, but hey, they can still, you know, capitalise on her presence in training, in setting standards, and hopefully that leaves something behind for the rest of the season.
Plenty for Newcastle to celebrate in the lead up to Christmas, that's for sure. Let's head north to Suncorp, Ishi, because Brisbane took on Adelaide. Let's talk about the pitch to begin with, because on our screens here, it looked rough as guts.
Yep, it was rough as guts. That's probably a really nice way to put it. You know, the A-League men played on it as well, so they had to put up with the same thing. I do feel for the Brisbane Roar women. They've had Ballymore, which was a really poor surface. They now had to play on this. You could see even just with simple passes, the ball bobbling. You know, it makes it difficult for you to implement. Football is based on what surface we have, and it makes it so much more difficult, and you can say that they're professional players and they need to improve it, but it does, you know, it definitely takes away from the game. But, you know, what they're trying to do then, they're trying to play more positive, more attacking football. They were a bit defensive under Gareth McPherson. And so to change that mentality and to get into it, it's going to take some time to bed in.
Hard-earned point for Adelaide. I mean, Mariah Lee's done well to get in and score. Hannah Blake was out injured, another Kiwi who might miss the football ferns as a result. But they fought. I mean, both teams created in this game, and I think they would actually be, even though they didn't win, somewhat satisfied that they actually exchanged attacks and this wasn't a stalemate. I mean, when they met in Adelaide last year, Raw won 1-0 from a set piece. Adelaide created nothing and they were stuck in this arm wrestle that went nowhere. At least today, both teams actually had a decent go at trying to win the game.
No, that's really important, but I think for the likes of Adelaide, they just need a little bit more cohesion in their team. There's too many gaps around the pitch, but for this side, it's important that they are just getting the points ticking along, but they need the 3 points if they want to get off the bottom end of the table.
Pokuah, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got Narlene. We're going to do a little reshuffle of the pack, but we so appreciate your time. Thanks for making your Dub Zone debut.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Let's have a look at the ladder now as well, because it makes for really interesting reading. Melbourne City, 3 points clear at the top, but Perth Glory and the Knicks right in there and amongst it. Melbourne victory after a slow start to the season in the top 4 as well. Sydney FC with a couple of games in hand, but for me, Ish, it's the fact that the Knicks, after 2 seasons of the wooden spoon, are playing some really beautiful football and getting results to match. That's the biggest talkie.
Exactly, that's what we're all talking about. You know, the likes of the Melbourne Cities and the bigger clubs, the more established clubs in the A-League Women's, you know, Melbourne City should be up there or thereabouts. But it's great to see, like I said, it's not even just that they're there, it's their style of play. I'm really enjoying watching what they're doing at the Knicks there, because it's fantastic and they just look like they're enjoying their football as well.
And Sydney in such an uncharacteristic position. you can't just assume the games in hand will be wins now. In previous Sydney FC seasons, you could, because they were that good. This season, they're going to have to go out and earn them. And those games in hand, it's not necessarily 6 points in the bank to see them rocket back up the table.
Nali Masto, hello.
Hello, so good to be back.
Lovely to see you again. You've got news from the world of socials for us. Let's throw it back to midweek and the Women's Champions League to begin with, because Sam Kerr was back in action and well and truly back in the goals.
I mean, is there any surprises there? Chelsea picking up a 4-1 win over Paris FC in the Women's Champions League during the week, and Kerr bagging her second hat-trick in less than a month. Now they have to face Leicester City in the WSL, and Leicester recently welcomed back former Sydney FC player and Matildas forward as well, Remy Simpson. She played 45 minutes and started in their Conti Cup win over Manchester City during the week. But Aish, I mean, if you asked anyone in the world, Sam Kerr is arguably the greatest player, but not the bloke you bumped into at the cafe during the week.
I know. Some bloke said to me, "Is Sam Kerr really that good?" I said, "Mate, she just scored 3 goals in the Champions League. She's our all-time goal scorer." And he went, "Oh, okay, so she is then."
No, good
I'm like,
enough.
"How are you?" Sam has proven herself in the Australian League, in the Champions League, in the American League, and in the English Super League as well. You know, she scores goals. She is a world-class player. I didn't go into that with the guy. I just went, yeah, of course she is.
Is the exit effect, the Emma Hayes departure, actually a factor that will help Chelsea finally break through and win the Champions League? Or is it just that they have the best assembled team to have a go at it under her reign so far?
I mean, it's a bit of both. I mean, Emma Hayes is an exceptional manager. She's a tactician. She's a people manager as well. I mean, you saw the little grab, didn't you, Narlene? And that went viral.
Exactly, the little presser grab. It's interesting to see where Chelsea head to next without Hayes now. So, yeah.
Let's throw it forward to the next Women's World Cup, which we don't know who's hosting it yet, despite the fact it's 2027. What's the latest on that front?
So South Africa had to withdraw their bid for the 2027 FIFA Women's World Cup, as you mentioned, Niamh. And the interesting part about this is that we know where the next 3 men's tournaments will be held, but we won't find out the next host of the Women's World Cup until next year in May. But there are 3 remaining bidders, one of which is Brazil. Then you've got USA and Mexico as a collective, and then 3 nations in Europe, in Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands. Aisha, where would you like to see it be held next?
Where do you want to go to watch the next World Cup?
Where do I want to go? I was actually thinking Brazil. Like, yeah, Brazil. Look, Europe does tournaments. They've got such great infrastructure. They've done it before, even having 3 different countries. The same with USA and Mexico. They work so closely together. They're doing that on the Men's World Cup. Brazil is the mecca of football, the home of football. A final at the Maracanã with the Matildas in it. I'd love to see that. So I'm going Brazil.
Lock that in.
Oh, good.
What about the fact that we have a future head of FIFA who is female, Marlene? This is exciting news.
So good, Niamh, but it isn't a human. This is Hope Sogdi, an AI-generated football expert who is running a hypothetical campaign to run for FIFA president. And the idea behind it is that it is influenced by the thoughts of, obviously, legends of the game, one of which former Matildas vice-captain Moya Dodd, and it aims to challenge the current decisions made by FIFA and the board. But, Aisha, I mean, this is one way to bring in a female, but it would be nice if it was a human.
It'd be nice if it was a human, wouldn't it? It really would. But got to give a shout-out to Moya and to Maggie Murphy, who's the CEO of Lewis FC. These 2 women are always advocating for the women's game, always agitating, always getting people to question their bias, their conscious and unconscious bias. And I think this was a really clever marketing tool to make people think. And you can interact as well with Hope, which is fantastic, asking her questions. She's got some great answers. I'm not sure she can predict maybe the outcome of next week's A-League Women's, but, I think it's just another thing that we just keep pushing and just keep asking the question.
Narlene, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Do you know who else can't predict the outcomes of next week's A-League Women's? Taya Pellizzeri, which brings us to Taya's top tip. Let's have a look at what you said was going to happen last week.
Prove me wrong, we will still have 3 winless teams this time next weekend.
And they did indeed prove you wrong.
Yeah, well, hang on. Credit to Wanderers. I still enjoyed the fact that they won. I would rather sacrifice the prediction and see what they did on the pitch just to, concertina the league and bring it back together. But here's the prediction for December the 10th, because we're heading into an international break, but when the A-League Women's returns. Newcastle has been waiting since December 2017 10 long games to beat Sydney FC. So long ago, Courtney Viner was playing for Newcastle last time Newcastle beat Sydney FC in the old W League. So the prediction for this week is Newcastle will break the 10-game winless run against Sydney FC. Congratulations, Newcastle, on your 3 points.
There are so many Jets fans who are devastated to hear you make that prediction, Teo. Thank you for nothing. Let's wrap Dub Zone there. Ish Ferguson, thank you so much for your company. Teo Pellizzeri, always a pleasure until the end.
See you next time.
Natalie Masto, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us at home as well. If you ever miss Dub Zone on a Sunday night, you can catch us on the A-League Women's Football Podcast, wherever you catch your podcast. But for now, enjoy the international break. Enjoy the Tillies back in action, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.